She's going to talk about financial documents for graduate admission. That's another requirement, very important. Many times people don't know about these requirements. So I'm very happy that Emily is here today to talk about this important requirement. So Emily Faris, and I hope I said right your last name, works as Latin American program assistant within international admissions at the University of North Alabama. She works with both undergraduate and graduate students in the application process and is also a graduate of the University of North Alabama. Before working for UNA, she also worked in Guatemala, Mexico, and Switzerland in various international organizations. And she's passionate about connecting students to international education opportunities. So again, Emily, thank you for being here with us. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction and just for the opportunity to join you tonight. I'm really glad to be here. So there it is, okay. So after hearing kind of an overview of graduate admissions, I'm glad that you're able to go over all of that. I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about the financial requirements for international students. And I'll ask for your patience a little bit. I'm having a little bit of allergies, so if you have any trouble hearing me, just feel free to let me know. But anyways, so why do universities have a financial requirement for international students? Well, it's actually a requirement by the US government that all international students show proof of finances for education, living, and other expenses before they come. This document, this requirement is actually what lets you get your I-20 document that lets you enter the country. So a few things to keep in mind with this requirement is that you have to show proof of funds for 9 months, which for us is a regular academic year. It's usually about August through May. The amount, so the actual, financial requirement will vary by school because the costs are different at each school. The amount will often vary by program also. So even at the same school, you could have a different financial requirement based on the program that you're applying to. So with this in mind, I would really just advise you to check with your international office that you're applying to for those requirements, and also if they have any specific templates or required documentation that they ask of you, because a lot of times they will have a document already ready for you that you just need to fill in with your financial information. So that's just a quick overview to the financial requirements, and we can move forward to more specifics. Okay, thank you. So what type of funds can you show? What does the documentation actually look like? Well, the most important aspect, I guess, is that it needs to be funds that are readily available. So one of the most common examples is personal or family funding. So this can be like your family's savings account, a checking account, certificates of deposit, any kind of funds like that are readily available. And so let's say that your family is providing this account for you. They would also need to send a sponsorship letter with that. So you would send the bank statement and also the sponsorship letter. And I have some examples of that I'll show you in a little bit that will look a little bit more closely. But some other examples besides personal funding is sometimes you may be offered a financial award or a scholarship. I know that we mentioned assistantships and fellowships earlier, so this would be included in that. So if you receive some type of scholarship or award from your university, that can also be included as proof of finances. So you would need documentation on letterhead from your school. It would say the specific amount of funding that you're receiving, the dates of the funding, how long are you receiving this funding, and also any terms of the scholarship. You know, for example, if it's an assistantship, it may state that, you know, you received this funding in return for working for the office or in return for teaching or doing research. So all of that will be listed in that document that you could submit. Some other examples, let me see. Okay, yes, so we can move forward to, this is kind of a sample bank statement, because I think it's easiest if we just look at an example. So this is an example of what you might ask from your bank directly, or a lot of times you can just go on the bank website and print this out. But there is some specific information that it needs to include. The first is the name of the account holder, whether that is you or your family or whoever your financial sponsor is. So it has to show the name. It also needs to show the date, the bank name, which is usually on letterhead, like in this example. It also needs to show the current balance. That has to be a specific amount. It can't be, you know, a general, you know, sometimes I've seen students turn in documentation that said, we have funds in the 5-figure range. Well, that's a little bit too general. That won't cover the requirement. So it needs to show a specific amount on the bank statement. And then it also needs to show the currency. You know, it doesn't have to be in US dollars, but it needs to show which currency it is so that we can see the equivalency. So another document that you might get from your bank is a bank letter. So this is a little bit different from a bank statement because this is a document that you would specifically request from your bank. And if you can see on the example there, it says it holds the same information, but it's just written in a letter format. So it still includes, you know, the name, the date, the bank name, the balance, and the currency, but it's just a little bit different format. So either one of these documents will work. Either one will fulfill the requirement. It's just going to depend on you and your bank, honestly, to work together and get that information. Okay, so moving forward, you know, aside from the bank statements and the letters that we just looked at, another common document that you need is going to be a sponsorship letter from your financial sponsor. And this is only if the funds or the account are not in your name. So for example, if you have your own account with the full amount in your name, you do not have to provide a sponsorship letter. But oftentimes the amount can be very large and you would have a financial sponsor. And so that sponsor can be family, friends, it can be a company. As I mentioned, some people even get like a government scholarship. So any of those can serve as your sponsor. It is also okay to have more than one financial sponsor. You know, if you have several family members who would like to sponsor you, or if you would like to use your personal account and a family member, for example, that is perfectly fine. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that a separate sponsorship letter is needed from each sponsor, from each you know, different account that you would be using. So again, I have an example here of a sample sponsorship letter. This is actually a template from University of North Alabama, where I work. Whenever students are ready to submit this documentation, we send them this template, and their sponsor can just fill in this information just the way it is. So the information that it typically includes is going to be your name, the student's name, the sponsor's name, the relationship to the student, you know, if it's your mom, dad, friend, grandparent. It also needs to state the university name, so the university to which you're applying. and then also the sponsor's signature and date. And so very similarly, this is a sponsorship template. If you remember earlier, I mentioned that sometimes universities will have a specific document or a specific template already for you to fill out. And this is an example of that. So it really contains the same information, but it's just from a specific school. And so what I would really encourage you with that is to look up on the school's website and also reach out to the international office to see if they have any documents like this for you already, that you don't have to start from square one, because they may have a specific layout that they want you to follow. But again, it will include the same information. That's just something you will need to check with your international office about. Okay, so we're about to wrap it up with the financial document aspects of it. I just wanted to go over a few things that, you know, I, as an admissions processor, have noticed whenever I've been working with students in their documents, and a couple of recommendations for you as you prepare these for your own application. So a couple of things that you want to do is to provide documentation from readily available sources. So like I mentioned, that's like a checking account, savings account, certificates of deposit, anything that is readily available like that. Something else is that you want to submit all of your documents in English. And, you know, for example, if your bank does not provide the documents in English, you would need to get a translation for that. But either way, it's important that you do provide those in English for your admissions office. Something else that you want to do is check the dates on all of your documents. Something very common that I've noticed with students sometimes is that, you know, they would talk to their sponsor and their sponsor would send a bank document from like a year ago, maybe, or it wouldn't be up to date. And these have to be current so that we are able to issue you the I-20 for your visa. So be sure that all of your documents are up to date and that they're current. Something else that is very important is to communicate with your financial sponsor. This is something else that I think is, you know, just to be very straightforward with them about the expectation. Sometimes the financial sponsor has written me directly and they wouldn't understand, you know, maybe the documentation, or they wouldn't, you know, they would send an incorrect amount, or they wouldn't provide the right documentation. And so be sure to communicate with them and understand all of the requirements very well, so that they can provide you the correct information. And then lastly, on the part that you definitely want to do is to communicate with your international office, because they work with students on a daily basis with these same documents. And so more than likely, they're going to have all the answers you need. And if you have any questions about, you know, well, is this document going to work, or what else do I need? Just reach out to them and ask them, and they'll be happy to help you with that. So, you know, kind of along the same lines, I want to tell you a couple of things that you don't want to do, a couple of things to be aware of. So don't provide documentation from credit cards, retirement accounts, or life insurance, as these are not readily available sources and they do not fulfill the requirement for proof of finances to study here. Something else that I've noticed a lot with students is sometimes they would submit documents without a sponsorship letter. So even if the document, you know, even if you have a bank statement with the full amount that's required, if you don't have the sponsorship letter from that sponsor, it won't be valid. So you need both of them together. The next one is something that I mentioned earlier is, you know, be very careful. You don't want to provide documentation that has a general amount. You know, sometimes we have received letters from a bank that would say, Yes, like our client has funds in the 5-digit range, but it doesn't say the actual amount. And unfortunately, that's not enough information for us to be able to give the I-20 with that. And so you want to make sure it has a specific amount on whichever document that you're giving. And lastly, I would recommend not to wait until the last minute, because sometimes it can take time to talk to your financial sponsor, but also to get these documents from the bank. And so if your application deadline is approaching, this is not something that you want to wait until the last minute. And so that really concludes the information that I wanted to share about the financial documents. Do we move forward with Q&A, or do we take questions, or how do we move forward?
We can just go ahead so they know about the University of North Alabama, and then we'll take the questions at the end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so kind of shifting gears a little bit. As we mentioned earlier, I am from University of North Alabama. It's where I work currently, and it's also the school where I graduated from. And so I wanted to share just a little bit of information about our university and some of the opportunities here. So we're a mid-sized university. We have almost 9,000 students, and approximately 300 of those are international students from about 50 different countries. We're happy to say that Mexico is one of those countries, but we would be very, very happy to have more Mexican representation on our campus. Regarding, student life and campus life in general, we have a very vibrant campus. There's about 140 different student organizations to join, depending on your interest. That was one of my favorite things about being a student here, was that there's a lot of great ways to get involved, and there's always something to do. And then, excuse me, as far as academics and programs, we have approximately 60 different undergraduate programs and 20 different graduate programs. So I know we were focused mostly on graduate admissions today. We have a really great MBA program that's very popular, but we also have many other options depending on your interest. And then lastly, just as a fun fact about UNA, is that we do have a live lion who lives on our campus. We're the only college campus in the United States that has a live lion, but it's very interesting. His name is Leo. He lives just right in the middle of the campus, and it's really fun to go visit him or to hear him roar on campus. I'm sorry, we can go ahead and move to the next one. So I know we were talking about funding earlier, so I wanted to share a few scholarship opportunities that we have for international students. The first is a housing scholarship. And so it's called the GLC, which stands for Global Learning Community Housing Scholarship. And this provides free housing in Rice Hall, which is kind of like our international dormitory, each year until you graduate. This is for both undergraduate and graduate students. And so it does help with the overall cost, not to have to worry about housing. And then in addition to that, we do have a recruitment scholarship, which is kind of like an academic scholarship that you would use towards tuition. And so that is $8,000 per year for undergraduate students, or $5,000 per year for graduate students. Both of these scholarships are renewable based on your GPA until you graduate. So I think that concludes the session, or it concludes my part at least. I have my contact information here. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. And then I also have some social media there from my university. But again, thank you so much for having me. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask those.
Thank you, Emily. I think this information is great because it's something that we do not address very often. Sometimes we wait until last minute, as you said. So this is great that we have this information. And we hope that we provided just basic information for you to be more curious, to ask more questions, to approach your Education USA Advising Center and your advisor so you can follow up and you can apply to your US graduate degree. So at this time, I'm going to invite Jenny, if we have any questions from the public. This is we have a couple of minutes to address some questions. So Jenny.
Hi, yeah, we have a few questions here. So I'm gonna go ahead with the first one. How long prior or before sending my documentation should I print my saving or checking account?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yes, so how long before sending the saving or checking account should they print their documentation to prove?
So talking about like the dates?
Yeah, exactly. So 2 months before, 1 month before, or I think that's what they are asking.
Okay, I see. That's a really good question, actually. So it has to be within a year of issuing your I-20. So your I-20 is usually issued about, right after you're admitted. So I would say like within a year is whenever that needs to be submitted. But again, it's always safe to check with your international office for sure.
Thank you. The next one is, do we need to have a specific bank or any Mexican bank would work?
No, it doesn't have to be a specific bank. That really doesn't matter. It can be any bank. It's really just about the other information that I said. So, the amount, the name, the sponsor, all of that. But any bank will work.
Thank you. And then regarding the sponsor, can I have a sponsor from a different country?
That's a good question also. Yes, your sponsor can be, from Mexico, can be from another country. If your sponsor is from the United States, which sometimes happens, there's actually a separate sponsorship letter that you have to do. It's called a I-134, I believe. And so that's the only thing, that if your sponsor is from the US, you do have a different document that you can fill out. But yes, it is perfectly fine to have a sponsor from another country.
Thank you, Emily. I think that was the last one I had for you, and I have one for you, Elvira. Would you recommend to create a LinkedIn account if I don't have one yet?
I do, yes. But you need to be aware that if you are going to open a LinkedIn account, you really need to have that updated. You need to start networking with different people, so it doesn't look just like a document that is not it doesn't look like just another CV. If you are going to be on LinkedIn, you have to be active, you have to be, but yes, I think it's a great way to show more information that you cannot show only in your CV or your resume. And I think in Education USA, in our YouTube channel, we have an information session about that. So yeah, but yeah, I will recommend to create one.
Thank you. I think those are all questions I have.
Great. So we just want to thank all of you that are here today, especially Emily. Thank you for this information that you shared with us today. And please, if you haven't, contact your advisor. Here are you can send me an email, this mexico@educationusa.org. It's my email. I'm going to answer you if you ask about your advisor, your center. And please follow us in our social media. We have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and all our events are published there. We also have a website, and here is the information. We have great resources here. And of course, our Education USA State Gov website, where all the information from Washington is going to be there. So again, thank you all. We hope to see you next year. If this is the first event that you are attending, We invite you to keep following us and getting in all the wonderful sessions that we offer. I think today it was just some basic information so you can start your process. And we hope to help you in your studies very, very soon. Thank you again. And thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Fernanda, for the support that you provided today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.